everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thanks for joining me. I'll be your astrologer today. Happy Thursday. Hopefully you guys are doing well. Hope your week is going smoothly. There's definitely some stuff going on in the skies. I wanted to touch base and create a video and talk to you guys a little bit about the Saturn retrograde in Pisces. Obviously this is going to be taking place later this month. And I want to talk about how to work with that, what we might be reevaluating during this very first retrograde that we're having with Saturn in this sign. And I want to give you guys some food for thought on the sextile to Jupiter in Taurus. If you like my content, you want to see more of it, make sure you click the button below, you're subscribed so you're alerted as to when I have videos coming out on the channel. We've got horoscopes every month, astro weather on Sundays, live readings on Fridays, and stuff sprinkled in between. Thank you guys for your comments, for your likes, your shares. I really appreciate it. Your guys' connection to the channel, interacting on the videos is really helpful for the growth. So if you're new here, introduce yourself, say hello, drop me a comment below. I'd love to hear from you. So yeah, we've got some cool stuff going on this week. We're really gonna start feeling the effects, I think, of the sextile and also the retrograde in just a short period of time. So I want to talk to you guys a little bit about both of these aspects. So just so you guys are aware, Saturn will be going retrograde on June 17th. So let me pull up that specific date for you. There we go. There we go. So on the 17th, we will see the retrograde begin, and it looks like it's going to be happening in the afternoon hours. Saturn, right? Planet of responsibility, karma, limitation, and anything in regards to maturity, responsibilities out in the world, responsibilities with work, to elders, to society, right? Is all going up for reevaluation. Now, it's not unusual for Saturn to retrograde. It's going to do this about once a year. So you want to look at where Pisces is in your chart. That's where the retrograde is going to be taking place. I touched on in the horoscopes why the Pisces house is so significant this month. First, we're going to see this Saturn retrograde at 7. And then later in the month, we're going to see Neptune turn retrograde. So there's something that we're reevaluating in regards to Pisces. Pisces out in the world can be what is hidden or secretive or mystical. Also things that are secretive within society. Pisces rules over people who are lost or wandering. It does deal also with immigration and global trends, anything in regards to hospitals, prisons, private spaces. The list goes on. So it's interesting to see Saturn, which is so opposite of Jupiter, Neptunian energy. The two rulers of Pisces are those two particular planets. And Saturn's retrograde is about reevaluating and really looking at our boundaries, especially when it comes to like the hidden realms or hidden worlds, our psychic kind of boundaries, our intuitive boundaries. And when planets turn retrograde, it's a time to reevaluate. And then we're going to have Neptune later in the month that's going to be going retrograde as well. And so that can be a little bit of a different energy, because then with Neptune retrograde, we're actually able to kind of start to see through the fog and harsh reality kind of sets in. Retrogrades should not be feared. I always am a big advocate for working with retrogrades. And it's going to be hard to not acknowledge some of this Saturn energy. You know, something we've seen very early on in June is a number of squares to Saturn where we have felt the delays, the challenges. We've felt like we're questioning ourselves, or maybe people have been a little bit more critical of us. And these squares have been interesting between Pisces, which can deal with our spiritual beliefs, our religious beliefs, our beliefs when it comes to, things that are more mysterious, or things that can also seem out of this world. It can deal with the oceans, it can deal with space, it can deal with aliens, and conspiracy, right? And all of the squares to Sun and Mercury that have been going through Gemini is lots of questioning information that's coming through radios, television, social media, things that we're reading, that we're hearing. And with these squares, there's been lots of room for misinformation, some intentional manipulation, some editing, and also things that are just distorted. So if you go back and you look at throughout this last month as we've had those squares, There's been a sense of really reevaluating, do I believe what I'm hearing, right? Is this true? Can I validate this? And mutable squares always talk a lot about kind of changing and reevaluating something. So I think the mutable signs deal with change a little bit better than a lot of the other particular signs. So this retrograde is going to span from June 17th of 2023 all the way to November 4th of 2023. So in November, we will see Saturn go direct and then come into these similar degrees later into 2024. Now the retrograde specifically is going to be from 7 degrees of Pisces to 0 degrees of Pisces. So if you have any personal planets or sun, moon, and rising, let's say 8 to 0 degrees of Pisces, really within the first decan, you will be experiencing Saturn retrograding over one of these placements where you're reevaluating maybe your karmic relationship to that planet, reevaluating themes revolving around growth or maturity, and on boundaries. Boundaries is a big thing that comes up with Saturn. And likely in Pisces, it's like boundaries for things that we weren't even aware of or that we didn't see or that we couldn't feel. And, you know, Pisces is a mutable water sign. So it is a sign that is connected to intuition and emotions and dreams and our psychic abilities. Now, in particular, this retrograde is going to be going through the first decan of Pisces. Okay, so the first 10 degrees of Pisces is associated with Neptune. So it's got really strong Neptunian energies. So the Saturn within this sign is pretty textbook. It's reevaluating our boundaries when it comes to things that are hidden or things that are going on kind of, you know, behind the scenes in our dreams, subconsciously, but also secret societies and secrets within, you know, organized religion and things that have to do with hidden spaces, back rooms, back meetings. Saturn is a planet that has connections to Capricorn and Aquarius. So we're going to hear more about some of the business dealings that have been going on and the potential political or even, you know, kind of like the tech side of what's been going on in business behind closed doors. We're going to hear a lot of reevaluating where we're going in terms of the future of, you know, international politics, and Saturn being in a sign that's associated with a water sign, rights in regards to water, protection of water, you know, rights in regards to the ocean. You know, Pisces in particular deals with the ocean, but also higher education, private education, things that involve psychology or therapy or sleep studies, psychological studies, especially anything connecting to medicine, and even like psychedelics. I think we're going to hear more about that stuff as well. So it's interesting to see Saturn turn retrograde at 7 degrees, which is a degree that's about relationships to others. I think it's safe to say that a lot of us are kind of swimming through the cosmic soup with Saturn in Pisces. That retrograde at a 7 and the connection to the decan of Neptune makes me wonder if a lot of this is about karma revolving around past lives and relationships. Not necessarily just romantic, but our relationships to people, whether or not we're playing out old karmic patterns, if there were things in relationships that are being exposed to us, alliances that people had that we were not aware of, and where there can be some challenges in relationships behind the scenes in general. You know, the dispositor of Saturn in Pisces is very much connected to Jupiter in Taurus. And I'm going to talk in just a minute about the sextiles here. It's a little bit of like sweet and salty. You know, the truth is that Saturn within this first degree and also Saturn connected to the Sabian symbol is a little challenging. The tarot card connected with the first decan of Pisces is the 8 of Cups. So, you know, the Cups element deals with water, it deals with emotions, it deals with things that can kind of flood our subconscious. Upright, this is a card that deals with disappointment, abandonment, withdrawal, and escapism, which are themes that come up with Pisces in general. And then reversed, it can be about trying again, being indecisive, aimlessly drifting, walking away from things. So we can kind of feel like we want to walk away, we don't know if it's a good idea, we're trying to fix something, we're disappointed it's not working, you know, do we abandon something? Are we dealing with abandonment issues? Are we having problems because we're withdrawing? And do we have escapism type tendencies? So And this would come up with Saturn in Pisces anyway. So the fact that it's really relating to this, I think, is really interesting, especially to see Saturn within the first decan and Neptune within the third. So there's something that's kind of mirroring each other and bringing up, I think, the topics of like where, as a society, we're becoming a little bit too comfortable being separate, and where people can also be kind of going into that Pisces pandemonium of the spirals of worst case scenario, and how I think a lot of us are really getting impacted by this psychologically and also spiritually, this kind of like division that's going on. The Eight of Cups in general, you know, you see a man walking away from the cups and they're standing in the foreground, and the cups are arranged in a way that looks like one is missing. This can be a sign that emotional fulfillment and wholeness is lacking. And so because the man has turned his back on these cups, there is a sense of loss and disappointment. And you see him like walking off into the distance, heading towards the mountains. There's a river nearby that symbolizes emotions, which in the tarot, you know, depending on the state of the water, it kind of gives you an idea of what the emotional state is. So like rivers can talk about things kind of passing, something kind of being cleared. And you see mountains in the foreground, which represent awareness that it's not going to be an easy journey, that you're going to have to move through some things and there can be some challenges along the way. And the moon in the night sky is illuminating the path overhead. And you see a man leaving at night, hoping that it won't be noticed that he's like leaving and going somewhere else. So it can also be touching on the theme of like escaping or avoiding a situation or trying not to be seen. So it's interesting that Saturn in Pisces within this decan is quite literally that. It's like, okay, am I going to get away with this? If I just cut and run, is anybody going to notice? You know, is somebody noticing that I'm ghosting them and not coming back to them? That can be kind of coming up with us. This particular transit of the retrograde between now and November is going to be felt the most by Pisces, Capricorn, and Aquarius risings. If you happen to have any of those placements, you're ruled by Saturn, or if you have Saturn going through Pisces and you're a Pisces rising, you're going to be feeling this impacting you personally. Also, those of you guys who are 0 through 8 degrees of the mutable signs, so Gemini, Virgo, and Sag, I'm talking to you guys too. You're undergoing a transit where you're having a Saturn opposition or a square, which does feel like there is some kind of pressure, or there's delays, or there's a need for more seriousness in the Pisces area of your life. Now I want to read to you guys, there it is, the Sabian symbol that I have for 8 degrees of Pisces, because the retrograde is going to start at 7 and change. A lot of you guys always ask me where I get this book, Sabian Symbols, A Screen of Prophecy. If you guys check out my Amazon link below, I have a whole list of the books that I'm reading or that I reference or use on this channel, along with some of the decks that I use also. I also have a Saturn in Pisces survival guide list. That's all of the things that I'm using during Saturn in Pisces, everything from, working with soaking your feet, or, using various oils for detoxing, all kinds of supplements that come from the sea, and things that really enhance your meditation practice. So if you guys want to check that out, check that out. Okay, so this is page number 371, and it's 8 degrees of Pisces. A girl blowing a bugle. Keyword is summons. The theme, a call to action. The symbol speaks to self-refinement and the development of a special expertise and skill. The image of a girl blowing a bugle emphasizes personal responsibility and pride and accomplishment. The suggestion here is that individuals find their ultimate happiness through being a genuine service to others, finding a special niche for themselves among their fellows. On a practical level, this degree can indicate a wake-up call, bragging, tooting one's own horn. At its highest, it represents directness and a special gift for finding opportunities to demonstrate talent, watch for intrusiveness, and loud attention-getting behavior. The accent is on a wake-up call. The day could present a special challenge. It's definitely time to pay attention to what you hear. Your greatest advantage lies in being prepared to take action. Keep your wits about you and do what needs to be done. Be responsible. Guard against dismissing some signal you get as a false alarm. Try not to have everything in your life so ordered and controlled that you can't handle an unexpected emergency or take advantage of an opportunity you've been waiting for. Stepping stones would be a call, invitation, solicitation, challenge, command, directive, citation, announcement, warning, prompt, responsibility, achievement. You guys know bugles, right? I think that's what they're called. It's like the horn, you know, so it's like it's making an announcement. Interesting stuff. You know, being that it's a retrograde too, I feel like this is picking up the energy of 7. So we read 8, so it is talking about like, okay, what are you going to do about it? And I remember when I did the Saturn and Pisces video and I talked to you guys and I was like, look, this Saturn ingress, you know, in the first 7 degrees that it's going to be going through can be challenging. There can be a sense of us still kind of trying to kind of get our sea legs, right, pun intended, Pisces, about us when it comes to Saturn moving through this part of the skies. This is the first time in almost 30 years that Saturn has been in Pisces. So for some of you guys that are experiencing your first Saturn return, this is you kind of getting like a reminder of what your natal Saturn is like. For some of you guys who are older and you've had the Saturn transit, it's really similar to what we went through in the early 90s. I want to read to you guys 7 because it is retrograding at 7, and I do feel like the effects of the degrees of 7 is really showing us what we need to reevaluate and do about it. So Pisces 7, a cross lying on the rocks. The keyword is conscience. The theme is slippage. The symbol speaks to the fear of personal rejection and blindly following the crowd in order to gain acceptance. The image of a cross lying on the rocks alludes to desolation, disillusionment, loss of faith, and abandonment of spiritual values. The emphasis in this degree is the importance of being true to yourself, listening to your voice of conscience, thinking independently, and standing up for what is believed in, even when it isn't popular. At its highest, the symbol represents moral integrity, courage, refusal to compromise self or lower personal standards in order to please others. Watch for being spineless and giving up and giving in to the demands of others, or a tendency to be easily intimidated. The accent is on letting your conscience be your guide. You could decide to make a clean break if it sever your ties of some sort. Your greatest advantage lies in refusing to compromise your integrity. Release whatever has been brought, no welcoming response. Guard against hanging on to what may be so detrimental to your own best interests in the foolish belief that something is better than nothing, and no one can do the job as well as I can. Don't be afraid to let go and let God. Stepping stones would be abandonment, withdrawal, rejection, retraction, neglect, denial, annulment, cancellation, disapproval, nullification, protest. Here's the deal. I feel like with Saturn activating this particular degree, and I have to, you know, just make a admission here. I have found myself saying this quite literally. Well, something's better than nothing. I've said it a number of times, and no one can do the job better than I can, which, yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting because so much of Saturn in Pisces, I think, is about learning to just let some things go and have faith that something better is going to show up. Or learning, because the polarity of the axis is Virgo, to let other people step in and help, right? And to give sometimes constructive criticism, sometimes to help you make something better. Learning how to delegate tasks and like when to let other people step in and assist you if it's something that they're better at. Learning to ask for help, right? Emotionally, physically, spiritually, financially. Something about this like really speaks, you know, to me personally. This particular degree, something I've been like really thinking about a lot. You know, slippage, personal rejection, saying things that isn't popular. I will go as far as saying that I do pride myself on being a very different YouTube platform than a lot of other astrologers and a lot of other readers online, because I dare to venture into topics that other people don't want to touch, which is totally fine. I understand that some people don't want to like lose their audience, but I also feel like there's been something really magical about Saturn going through the first few decades, and for me finding my voice and feeling like I can express my beliefs and stand up for the things that I believe in spite of the potential of getting some feedback that's not so positive, and hearing from people who may not necessarily resonate. But I've also noticed that for every one negative comment, there's like 10 positive comments for people who are like, thank you for saying this. I've been afraid to say this. I'm feeling this. I don't know who I can talk to about it. So I feel like in that sense, like me being a bit of like a shit disturber, it's kind of like making a difference. Yeah, I definitely feel that. Let me know if you're having some similar things that are going on right now. I mean, there is a sense of really needing to stick to your guns when it comes to moral integrity, courage, and refusal to compromise the self or lower personal standards in order to please others. Also dealing with that a lot in my personal life. This one really resonates with me. Let me know if it resonates with you too. That was the Sabian Symbols. So let's talk a little bit more about Saturn retrograde in general, right? Particularly in Pisces. So retrogrades, obviously, from our perspective on Earth, it seems like the planet is going backwards. Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac, and Saturn moving through there. This is the first retrograde that we've seen since Saturn has ingressed into Pisces this year. So some themes that you're going to see with Saturn retrograde, I think for starters, is spiritual reflection. Just number one, that's like a very easy kind of takeaway. Pisces is a very deeply spiritual, intuitive sign, and Saturn represents discipline. So because Saturn wants discipline and it wants structure, you know, during this retrograde, it's a time to really reflect on your spiritual beliefs, practices, connection to your higher self. A time to explore your inner world and deepen your understanding of your spiritual path. For some people, you may go back to church. You may go back to meditating. You may go back to your spiritual practice. You might start focusing on having a daytime, you know, early morning routine or an evening routine. You might create time in your schedule to go to a yoga class or go to a meditation class. You might go back to therapy. You might decide to go and visit a retreat that you've been to before, or a place that you feel very spiritually connected. The 12th house was connected to temples and churches. So I could see a lot of people going back to places of worship and practice and really needing that connection with Source. I think the Saturn retrograde is also going to be about emotional boundaries because Pisces is a water sign and Saturn does deal with these boundaries or limitations. You know, Pisces is compassionate and empathic, so it absorbs things from other people, okay? It's like a sponge. But with Saturn's influence during this retrograde, it helps you establish and strengthen emotional boundaries. It encourages you to discern between your emotions and that of others, allowing you to protect your emotional well-being. Here's a little tip from somebody who's super empathic to some of you guys who I know are struggling with this, and maybe you've just noticed that the heaviness of things around you and just being more sensitive. Whether you're having more active dreams when things are kind of going on collectively, or you're feeling like you're getting slimed just going to the grocery store. Many of us, as we're leaving the door, or we're going out the door and leaving the house, will grab our wallet, grab our keys, grab a hat, maybe grab our purse. Make a conscious effort when you're leaving your house to just sit or stand for a second. You can even do it when you're putting your shoes on. And this needs to be similar to grabbing the things that you need before you leave the house. It needs to become a routine. Make a conscious habit of like closing off your auric field, right? I'm not saying cut yourself off from other people, but do like a vibe check on yourself. That's the best way I can explain it. When I leave the house, I always take a second. I think about my crown chakra. I make sure that it's like enclosed and that there's no holes or anything, nothing that feels weird. And I just do like a energetic body scan. And I just take a second to become conscious of all the various parts of my body from my crown all the way to my toes. And I envision there being like this golden bubble around me, or like a pink bubble around me. And then once I feel that that's complete, I leave the house. And I'm trying to do this every single time I leave the house, because I'm noticing when I'm doing that, I have made a conscious connection and a decision to be like, I'm protecting my space. I'm not going to pick up things from other people. I'm holding this high vibe. I'm protected. I'm not going to get kind of hit with all this psychic slime. And also I'm radiating that outwards to help encourage other people to like stay in their lane and to vibe better, right? So it's not just about protecting me, it's radiating that outwards. Maybe that's helpful for you. So try to get in the habit of doing that. No different than grabbing your wallet or your keys or your phone, so you can practice better emotional boundaries. 12th house / Pisces is very karmic. So I think that the Saturn retrograde is going to give us the opportunity for karmic healing. Pisces is associated with the realm of karma. Saturn represents karmic lessons and responsibilities. So obviously during this period, we have the opportunity to, release old wounds. We can heal. We can find that we can finally clear old patterns. We can confront some of these issues and release these wounds or emotional baggage, or any outdated beliefs that hinder our own personal or spiritual growth. So we want to do this during the retrograde, okay? It's really easy while the retrograde is happening, especially Saturn, to go, oh, there's not as much pressure. I can just go back to my old habits or my old patterns. Stay focused. Think of the Saturn retrograde as you're taking a test, the teacher leaves the room. Are you going to pull out your phone and start texting? Are you going to ask the person next to you for their answers? Or are you just going to keep doing your work and making sure that you're completing your exam? Because the teacher is going to come back in and you're going to get that test graded, right? So if you're screwing around during the retrograde, when Saturn goes direct, we will eventually start to see the negative effects of that. And in the back of my mind, you know, in 2 years, when Saturn's leaving Pisces, Saturn's going to come into conjunction with Neptune. So in 2 years' time, we're going to be seeing globally that there is going to be more of a mental health theme of needing to have better mental health, what we're consciously doing with this time alone, how we're managing our self-undoing tendencies, and if we're really making a conscious effort to strengthen our intuitive abilities, our spiritual abilities, and coming together and uniting and being like a force for love, right? Dreams and intuition is going to be big because Pisces is known for dreamy, intuitive nature, and Saturn adds practicality and structure. So during this retrograde period, you can enhance your dream life, your intuition, and your connection to the subconscious. So it's a time to review dreams, right? You can go back over a dream journal. You can go deeper into dream meanings by looking up the signs and the symbols. And I also feel like it's going to give us like a direct connection to our subconscious. So pay attention to your dreams, intuitions, and signs from the universe as they may provide valuable insights and guidance. I also feel like those of you guys who feel like you need to go back to seeing a hypnotherapist, or you want to go and do a past life regression, or you want to reconnect to a counselor or a therapist or like a spiritual teacher or a mentor, this is a wonderful time to do that if you guys need that assistance. I'm looking forward to Saturn really during this retrograde showing us opportunities for boundaries because it is the planet of boundaries and responsibility. So during the retrograde, there may be a need to reassess or redefine our personal boundaries, both in relationships and our self-care practices. So it'll be a time to take responsibility for our actions and make those adjustments necessary to create a healthier balance in your life. So it's going to be different for everybody depending on what house it's in, but I will tell you that me personally, I have not done so great with my Saturn work. I'm fully expecting Saturn to just come back in this retrograde and kick my ass because I know that's what's going to happen. So my goal here is to wait until the retrograde happens, knowing that I'm going to have to work 3 times harder where Saturn is in my chart to better balance out those energies, right? And so what's interesting is Saturn is usually very practical, very literal because it is connected to Capricorn. Just food, you know, for reference, I have Saturn going through my 6th house. So I've been working like crazy. I'm sticking to deadlines. I'm getting it done. It's all going according to plan. But the other side of the 6th house, especially through the Pisces lens, for those of you guys Libra risings, is doing the work and the effect that it has on you energetically, the drain that it has on you energetically, emotionally, how it affects you. If you're making that time to consistently take care of your body, to making that time to make sure you're eating well, sticking to like health routines, whether that's taking your supplements, going to the gym. So sometimes you can see where you're doing one side of it but not the other. And so there can be a tendency I've observed to go, well, I'm doing the physical, you know, stuff. I'm showing up and doing the physical, but the retrograde in Pisces is going to be, but are you doing the emotional? Are you taking care of that stuff? So those of you guys who feel like you're getting a little behind, or you also are acknowledging you're not doing fully the Saturn work, you can use the retrograde to your advantage to go back and say, okay, I need to make these adjustments. And yes, you're going to have to work harder with the planet that's retrograde. But when Saturn goes direct at the, the fall of this year, you might reap like amazing results. So don't beat yourself up if you're a little behind the Saturn stuff like I am. So then finally, compassion and service. That's a big theme with Pisces. I mean, Pisces is a compassionate and a selfless sign. So while Saturn's influence adds a sense of responsibility and duty, I think this retrograde period is going to encourage us to participate in acts of compassion and be empathic and service towards others. It's a time to consider how you contribute to the greater good and make a positive impact in the lives around you. whether that's just a simple paying it forward, or, you know, kindness or kind acts of service, donating charitable causes, donating time, things like that, what you're doing to help those who are in need. And it can be the most simple thing. It could be as simple as a prayer. It doesn't always have to be a physical, tangible thing. Now, helping aspects, obviously for me, is, like I said, the Saturn sextile Jupiter. That's huge. And we're going to see that in 2 separate time periods. So you're going to see this getting picked up a lot, basically around like 15th, 16th of June, once Saturn is picking up within a 2-degree orb of Jupiter. And then you're also going to see this play out from mid-June through the 30th. So you've got about 2 weeks of Saturn sextile Jupiter. Down the road, you'll see this aspect come back again, but it won't be until the beginning of 2024. So in 2024, from January 10th, 2024 to March 8th, that'll be like almost 2 months, right, of seeing Jupiter sextile Saturn. Why do I think this is important? Well, like I said, Jupiter is the dispositor for Saturn, okay? So we've got Jupiter in a earthy sign about growth and abundance and material stuff, and we've got Saturn in a spiritual sign that is about the visions, the dream, the intuition. So this is the dream team. We've got Pisces that's like in the back room, pulling the tarot cards, drawing up the plans, creating the vision boards, putting together the slideshow, the collages for here's what we will build. This is what it will look like. This is what we're manifesting. Giving this to Taurus, where Jupiter is there going like, okay, we're learning how to visualize and then build things. And it might be quite literal. Some of you guys are teaching yourselves how to build gardens. You are teaching yourselves how to develop land. You are teaching yourselves and spending nights researching, learning about jewelry, right? Taurus could be jewelry, it could be rocks, it could be food. Meeting, you know, certain groups are meeting and teaching each other about survival skills and preservation of stuff. And yeah, I mean, the list goes on. It really depends on where this is playing out in your chart. I'm just speaking in a sense of what these 2 signs represent. Because Taurus is the very first earth sign and the very fixed sign of the zodiac, it's solid, right? And next year, we're going to see Jupiter and Uranus come into connection. So there is going to be room for sudden exponential growth. If you guys remember that picture that I showed you, I'll probably pull it up so you can see it during this video, with the pot, and I talk about how the pot is basically Saturn, and it's the vessel for holding the seeds, and that, you know, basically Jupiter in the North Node is planting a seed of abundance. That in itself, that connection is rare. We only see that every 6 or 7 years, the Jupiter North Node connection. That's planting a seed that in spring of 2024 will grow exponentially, but it's only as a result of the time, the commitment, the willingness also to create something that has form to be able to support this new life and this new growth, right? Recently, this growth has been threatened by Pluto, and there's some kind of crisis that's promoting some kind of growth. This is why suddenly we see a lot of people buying land, talking about, you know, living in more rural areas, or you know, starting their own farms and trying to kind of live off of the land. It's quite literally, you know, Jupiter Pluto, because of the erosion of what's going on in society with Pluto and Aquarius, and the fact that people are wanting to get back to becoming more self-sufficient and sustainable. So what's interesting is that, you know, Jupiter sextile Saturn, I think, is the hard work you're willing to put into learning and studying, but also the faith that requires the ability to kind of keep the whole thing running, right? So I'll pull that image up so you can see it. But when you see these 2 in a sextile, sextiles are 60-degree angles, okay? We call these lazy aspects, so you got to do some work to reap the rewards. It's an angle that signifies opportunities, cooperation, the blending of the 2 energies. Earth and water work together, right? You have to water your garden for there to be growth, but earth and water together make mud. And mud can eventually blend, and it can harden, and it can build structures. So I think that that's like the nice combination of the 2 ways that this Jupiter, you know, Saturn sextile might manifest. For starters, I think it's the balance between structure and expansion. when, Uranus has been in Taurus these last several years, we've seen Saturn square, and there's been like pressure and limitations with Saturn in Aquarius that was not allowing Uranus to break free. Now we see Saturn coming in, and some people will say, oh, this is how things become structured and it allows the growth. Yeah, to an extent. Saturn in Pisces is partially why we're seeing certain businesses collapse. We're realizing it's like an emperor has no clothes situation. Certain banks are collapsing because this is about structures in society dissolving that did not have what they said they had to begin with, or did not have the guidance, did not have the right CEO, did not have the right structure. And it was like perhaps a pyramid scheme. I don't know, in some certain situations. And like I said, Jupiter is the dispositor or rules Pisces. We got Jupiter and Uranus in the North Node in Taurus. So what's dissolving? We're realizing that, some, food providers, we're finding out that, certain actual physical structures are not secure. And I think we're also finding a lot out about the banking system. Part of that is Pluto going back into Capricorn as well, where a lot of that has been happening because there's been some manipulation that's been involved. But for the sake of just talking about, Jupiter and Saturn, this sextile I think is positive. Saturn represents discipline and responsibility, while Jupiter symbolizes growth and abundance. Finally, we have Saturn in a positive aspect to Jupiter and also kind of Uranus. So it brings the potential to find balance between the need for structure and the desire for growth and expansion, and encourages you to take calculated risks to pursue your ambitions while maintaining grounded and practical approach. Saturn is kind of lassoing Jupiter and Uranus, saying like, you can go so far, not too much. Don't get too cocky. Stay with it. Like, we're not going to get too crazy. It'll kind of bring you back in. And it tempers the sadness, or it tempers the disconnectedness that we may feel with, Saturn and Pisces, right? So for some of you guys who are feeling the blues, quite literally working with Earth will be really helpful. Potting some plants, going for a walk in the garden, getting your hands more so involved in knowing where your food is coming from, growing your own stuff, cooking your own food, food prepping. I mean, this is something that can be so almost like therapeutic and also like meditative. If you guys are like me and you have a lot of placements in like your second or your fourth house, you might like doing these things. And if you don't, it doesn't have to be cooking and doing domestic stuff. It could be painting, it could be drawing, it could be working with crystals, it could be anything that's about integrating that element of earth, because it's meant to be like a much more practical kind of grounding or creative, right, self-expressive type, practice. I like that. I really like the grounded, practical approach to growth, because next year when we see Jupiter and Uranus come together, it's like gloves come off and something is just going to suddenly grow like crazy. So this is a year where we get a little bit of, like, believe it or not, a reprieve. All of the really intense transits are kind of happening like spring into summer, but it's not as chaotic as it's been since 2020. So we have an opportunity to start building towards a goal and visualizing what we want and creating something that eventually, come the spring of next year, could be extremely abundant for some people. I mean, it could be out of this world growth, and it can be better self-esteem. It doesn't have to be money. It could be better self-esteem. It could be having more physical security and a sense of ownership or land or connection to the earth. I also like that there is a nice balance between optimism and practicality. I think with Jupiter on the North Node, we're all learning to be optimistic that, yeah, things feel pretty heavy out there. Things seem almost like end times, but that's also bringing some people closer to their faith. That's bringing some people to a point where they're going like, well, I have to have faith that things are going to work out, and I'm holding space for that, and I'm optimistic that some of these challenges are being kind of thrown our way, so we're actually learning how to evolve or come together or have faith in a higher power, whatever that may be. Jupiter's influence in Taurus promotes a sense of optimism, abundance, and practicality. It can enhance your ability to manifest your goals and desires in very tangible ways. Now, the sextile to Saturn and Pisces adds stability and grounding to this optimism, helping you channel your enthusiasm and aspirations into concrete actions. It supports a realistic and measured approach to achieving your goals. So whether that's sticking to timelines or making sure that you're just participating in work in a way that feels good and in alignment, something that I keep practicing is like, okay, am I trying to, with my schedule or with what I'm doing, like once I start feeling like I'm trying to put a circle into like a square peg hole, I'm not going to do it. I'm just kind of like realizing where there's resistance and being like, this doesn't feel good. I'm not going to do it this way. So I'm trying to ease my way into restructuring things in my daily life in a way that feels more natural, or letting more of my intuition be my guide, which seems kind of silly because that's what I'm teaching other people. But in order for me to be able to teach other people, I have found that my life has to be very structured. And I'm learning that I have control over how that structure looks and what it feels like. And the best way for me to navigate that is to be optimistic that things are going to continue to grow as long as I'm paying attention to how I'm feeling while I'm in the flow of my daily routine. So I resonate with that. You know, I think that it adds stability and grounding, and it's also going to help channel enthusiasm and aspirations into some of these concrete ideas, allowing us to be realistic and measured when it comes to how we're approaching achieving our goals. Diligence and persistence is a big one. Saturn's influence in Pisces emphasizes discipline, hard work, and persistence, especially in a sign where we don't always know how to do that. Because Pisces can lose track of time and fall asleep and hit the snooze button and lose something and kind of get like lost in a daydream, Saturn being in that sign is like really teaching us that we do have to work harder when it comes to that Pisces area of our life. And I think with the sextile to Jupiter, it encourages us to apply these qualities to expand our horizons and reach our goals. This aspect supports a patient and determined approach, enabling us to overcome obstacles and make steady progress towards our ambitions. So if you're willing to put in the work, you're going to see the growth, and you're also going to see that you have to keep at it, man. Like Saturn's not going to just let you slack off. And like I said, you have to, with a sextile, do the work in order to reap the growth. So this is where you want to keep your eyes on the prize the next couple of months and not allow yourself to regress in the Pisces area of your life, so you can really keep building and seeing that growth in the Taurus area, especially going into spring of 2024. Now, when I think of like Saturn in Pisces and Jupiter in Taurus, I think of practical wisdom and growth. Jupiter is associated with practical wisdom, financial matters, and material growth, while it's in the sign of Taurus. With the sextile to Saturn in Pisces, you can effectively combine practicality with a deeper understanding of the bigger picture, and this aspect will allow us to make wiser decisions, especially regarding long-term plans and investments, because, well, it's, you know, planning is Saturn, investments, money, resources is Taurus. And it'll encourage us to consider the practical implications of growth and expansion, ensuring that our efforts are sustainable and grounded. Perfect words coming up again. But, you know, practicality is all Saturn. And I think what's cool is that we're learning that if we really want that material growth, we have to take a trust fall with the universe. We can't have things physically manifest without a connection to a higher power, a vision, a belief system. We have to have that in that life that we're envisioning. And we need to be kind of looking at it in a state of, it's already here, I already have it, the universe has my back, everything is going to go exactly the way that it's meant to go, it's going to pan out, and the universe provides. We're realizing that abundance is a state of mind, right? And the way, like I said, that we look at abundance is definitely changing and transforming. For many people, abundance is going to be seen as, do you have freedom? Do you have control over your body? Do you have access to wealth? Do you have the ability to create? Are you bringing pleasure into your life? Do you have access to resources, to food, these kinds of things? And I think that the key to abundance the next couple of years is going to be getting back down to basics, and also encouraging us to learn more about what we do with our money. And I think a lot of people are going to be taking the time in the late hours and burning the candle at both ends to be working extra jobs, to save money, to have more resources, or to be studying, going back to school, to feel like you have more. Opportunities for success are here, okay? I would say that anyway with the Jupiter North Node connection, but with the sextile between Saturn and Pisces and Jupiter and Taurus, it indicates opportunities for success, particularly through the integration of structure, discipline, and expansion. It suggests that by embracing a balanced approach to working diligently towards your goals, you can achieve significant growth and fulfillment in such areas as finances, career, and personal development. So I like this because, you know, Saturn doesn't deny generally, unless it's not for you. He just delays. So while Saturn goes retrograde, we're not going to see as many delays. And I think that, you know, the energy of Jupiter in the North Node is going to be very strong because Jupiter is not retrograde yet. So I think we're going to see a significant amount of success. We're going to see more of that happen also as we get planets coming into Virgo, starting to kind of trine the North Node, Uranus, and Jupiter really kind of showing us where we can get things in order. And it's going to come in cycles. You know, that Jupiter North Node, I think the last time we had that conjunction, it was happening in Virgo. So it happens every 6 or 7 years, and it doesn't mean that it's something that manifests right now. Something is being seeded that you're going to see play out over like the next 6 to 12 years. So you have to look at where Taurus is in your chart. There is some significant growth or new seeds that are being planted only if you're providing the appropriate vessel, the pot, the security, the boundaries, right? And likely it's things that are invisible, things that you're not even seeing that you need to be more checked in about, so that way this growth can happen. But, you know, remember, different outcomes are going to happen for different people. So this is where it pays to really know your personal chart. If you don't know aspects of your personal chart, do consider booking a reading, talking to an astrologer, and finding out what's going on. But definitely, like, the hot zones are going to be pretty much like the first 10 degrees of Pisces and also the first 10 degrees of Taurus. So if you have any personal placements there, it's going to be more personal to you. You guys can find out more about that by watching your June 2023 horoscopes for the various 12 rising signs. I walk you guys through all of the aspects. There's time codes also for each of the 12 rising signs. It's about 20-25 minutes per each sign. But I visually show you the sextile, and I talk about, you know, what houses are getting activated and what might be kind of growing for you. And I might refer you back also to my Jupiter and Taurus video, so you guys can take a look at that as well. And then finally, in closing, I did pull a couple cards just to get an idea of what was going to be happening with this transit. That's something I've gotten in the habit of doing now for some of these major aspects astrologically. I am still working with these two decks. So I am still working with the Lucid Dreams Beginner deck. And this was gifted to me, Your Next Move Oracle cards by the Empress Speaks. Thank you for this. I've been using them. Because, like I said, we've got planets that are in the later signs. So when we see stuff going on in the late degrees or in Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces, this is where we're wrapping up cycles. We kind of feel like we're on the edge of our seats. Like it's like the last episode of like a reality series, and like things are just getting kind of crazy. So I pulled 3 cards for past, present, future, maybe what's been happening, where we're at right now, and what to look forward to. I think the right now card is like what we're going to be working through during the retrograde. And then I pulled a next move card to let us know what's the next move we're going to make, what we need to be doing with this particular retrograde. And I have to tell you guys, I was kind of shooketh. We got 3 major arcana cards, so that was really interesting. For the past, I got the Hierophant, which those of you guys who are tarot enthusiasts, you know that this is connected to Taurus. So it is talking about Jupiter in the North Node. So the Hierophant is connected to spiritual wisdom, religious beliefs, tradition, convention, conformity, education, knowledge, and belief systems, right? So it's cool because I think with Jupiter conjunct the North Node in Taurus, there is this wave of people wanting to learn more, right? It's about knowledge. It's not just about money. It's about knowledge. It's about information and growth. Taurus is a conservative sign. I like that it talks about spiritual wisdom because that is also touching on Saturn and Pisces, where we have a karmic responsibility to be doing the soul work right now. And the more that we're doing that soul work, it's allowing us to also get in touch with the energies of abundance, get in touch in the energies of, being in our bodies, feeling good in our bodies, feeling grounded. When we're stressed out and worried and kind of bouncing all over the place, we're not able to be grounded. If we're stressed out and worried about the future or stuck in the past, we can't make decisions that are allowing us to be physically in our bodies and feel good about the decisions we're making or be present. So I think that this is a combination of both Jupiter but also Saturn in Pisces. It might be talking about the fact that we need more structure, right? We need to go back to some old traditions, to some old practices. We're educating ourselves. We're learning more about our belief systems. We're looking for something to kind of have some kind of faith connection with. Sure, this can be about seeing a doctor, a priest, a counselor, somebody in society who is considered well-educated or well-versed in some of these manners that can give you some kind of guidance. But maybe in the past position, it's kind of saying like, we had more traditions in the past, and like now we're seeing that kind of erode, or like maybe we're not so good about some of our meditation or going to some of our, you know, group meetings or religious or spiritual kind of meetings, if that's what you're into. And so some people might be reflecting on a time where we had more support and we had better faith. Then for the right now card, I got the Tower reversed, and I was like, oh, I mean, this is kind of expected, you know. The Tower is like like when the Jenga tower falls, like you can't just put it back together, right? Or when a building collapses, you don't just put it back together. It's like you have to level the whole thing and start over and clear the rubble. So the Tower reverse deals with fear of change, right? You know, impending disaster, the moment has already passed, oppression, carelessness, negligence. But I think that the big one is fear of change. And when we see Saturn going retrograde, it's like, okay, where are we afraid to start over? Where are we afraid to restructure? What's breaking down? What's no longer solid? So we might actually see during the retrograde that certain things do kind of fall apart. But if it's falling apart, it's encouraging us to kind of go, okay, we need to learn how to rebuild something, right? That's more so solid. You're going to find more solidness coming from the earth signs. So I'm looking at like, you know, the next couple of weeks as we see the North Node in a sextile with Saturn. I'm really waiting until Mars comes into Virgo and starts trining. I also think that there's going to be some goodies when we see some trines to Pluto. And then finally Capricorn season. That's also going to be like this buildup. So some of us are really focusing on working on this all year. It's really going to be until the later part of 2023 that we're really reevaluating, you know, making change. And instead of being like, oh, I don't want to open that door because it's gonna cause some problems, like the willingness to kind of go in and do the work necessary and not being avoidant or not being careless when it comes to the Saturn energy. And then finally, for the future prediction card, I got the Star card, which is cool. This is the card that comes after the Tower. So it's kind of like the healing after the crisis, society coming together, new hopes, dreams, and wishes, renewal, miracles, rejuvenation, healing, positivity, inspiration. I do believe that part of this is also connected to Pluto, because Pluto has been going in and out of Capricorn. So now, you know, as this sextile is kind of setting up and the retrograde is setting up, Pluto's back into Capricorn. So it's going to go back into Aquarius here in the new year. Can this mean that together we have to fix things, we have to mend things? We're realizing that we're not just passing it off to superiors or to politicians or to bosses or people passing the buck and the responsibility onto others, assuming that they're going to take care of things for us. Probably. I would think so. But I also feel like it's a really good omen, and it really kind of suggests that in order for us to have our wish or our fulfillment, we have to have a Tower moment, right? There has to be a sense of like clearing things, and perhaps we need to see where there are some structures in our lives that are not stable so we can come together with other people and build something stronger, build something better, and something that's going to also be more so in alignment with where we hope to be going on a life level. And then for the next move card that I pulled, I got keep your options open, which I like. That's optimistic. Choices, options, we always see that with mutable signs. I do feel like those periods that I mentioned where you're going to see the sextile between Saturn and Jupiter from mid-June to the end of June, and then again January 10th through the 8th of March, this is when you're going to see options. This is when you're going to see choices, okay? So perhaps, maybe, things are going to turn out a whole lot better than we thought. It's just going to take a little bit of faith, restructuring, rethinking, going back to the drawing board, sitting down and really asking ourselves, what do we want? What do we need? How can we make these changes? And how can we get practical with some of the changes that we're going to be making? And yeah, I think that we need to add more spirit into what we're actually going to be building. So I'm excited to see that sextile take place. Like I said, if you guys want to watch your horoscopes, I'll show you through the sextile of the 12 signs where that's going to be happening in your chart, and where the Pisces house and the commitment and the dedication is really fueling the opportunities for growth where Jupiter in Taurus is. Hopefully this is helpful for you guys, giving you guys some food for thought and how to navigate the next couple of weeks and really make lemonade in the midst of what can be some other challenging transits. I know there's some mutable squares going on. I also know that we're getting ready to see a number of squares happening between the fixed signs. So don't lose sight of this silver lining. Let me know, how are you feeling with these transits? Do you happen to be a Pisces, Capricorn, or Aquarius rising? Equally, my Jupiter people, so Pisces and Sag in particular, this is really positive for you. You guys are having a lot of support. I always appreciate your likes, your comments, your shares. Please do consider donating or joining my memberships if you guys like my work. If you guys would like to book a personal reading with me, check out my website below at beyondtheveiltarot.com. I would love to see you as a personal client. And yeah, check out my website while you're there. I have all kinds of offerings, from astrological calendars to webinars and courses on tarot and astrology. I hope that you guys like this. I'm excited to see what is being seeded for the future and where we're getting a little bit of support from Saturn. I will be back here on Friday doing a live reading tomorrow, so check that out. I'll be here at 5 p.m. Pacific, and that'll be 8 p.m. Eastern. I'll post a link so you guys can check that and you can sign up. We're going to be doing live astrology readings. So if you have some questions about this aspect or anything else that's going on in the skies, I hope to see you there. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of your week. I will see you guys tomorrow, and take care.